Welcome Alan Quinlan to the show. Quinny, how are you getting on?
Very good, Adrian, yourself.
I've got one in particular here, Adrian, for you, and this is coming up the same street as yourself, and I'm interested to get Quinny's views on this as well. This is the silliest comment of the morning, right? From Super Saturday. So Shane will support these players when playing for Ireland, but would cheer for a foreign team when they are playing against Irish players in blue.
So we were discussing earlier
that
on
is
who would
ridiculous.
People outside of Leinster be supporting.
Why would I support Leinster?
Cup final?
I want Irish. Why would I support Leinster?
I don't know. I can't tell you what you should or shouldn't do.
Adrian was telling me it's populist to support against Leinster.
Of course it is.
Yeah,
would you agree with that?
That doesn't mean
it's popular to be
I should support
anti-Leinster when you're not from outside Leinster. People don't like them.
When you yeah,
isn't that true?
I wouldn't say people don't like them. I'd say not a. I'd
Come on
flick
now,
that
don't be
over
walking
a little bit
don't
and
be
probably
walking
say that they probably outside of Leinster.
The sneeriness at Leinster because.
But you're a Connacht man, really. So
get out of it. Regardless of that, there's a dislike for Leinster, and it was there before they started winning stuff.
It's called sport. Why would Liverpool fans support Man United if United were?
I'm better off to
title
stay
race?
out of this. You just argue away there.
So say biggest rivals. So say who's Westmeath's biggest rival? Traditionally Meath.
Yeah.
So say Westmeath.
They wouldn't see it that way.
Say Meath beat Westmeath in a Leinster semi-final. Do you expect all the Westmeath fans to go and support Meath in the final?
We need to be careful with the comparisons because they're different. Like
so I'll ask you, Liverpool United.
I'm not sure that the comparisons hold.
People, I saw Gary Neville in the last season, tweeting stuff after matches and stuff when Liverpool were beaten when they lost the Champions Cup final, the league, all that kind of stuff when they've lost matches this year. And I was just thinking, if I'm in that same position, if I was doing that, God, I wouldn't do that. But he doesn't really care. And then someone asked him before, like, do you want to see Liverpool win? And he was like, what do you mean?
I think a fairer
mean?
comparison is if Munster, Connacht or Ulster were in the Champions Cup final, would Leinster be supporting them?
Correct.
Absolutely.
But ordinarily I would support Leinster in Europe, but it's only because it's Rog and La Rochelle.
Yeah.
If Leinster were playing Exeter in the Champions Cup final, I'd be supporting
Leinster. That's only because if they were playing another French team.
Well,
anybody versus an English team, Shane, we understand.
Well, of course, yeah, but it's Rog. That's the reason. I don't want people to think I'm anti-Leinster or anyone from outside Leinster is
anti-Leinster. Celtic says people hate Leinster because of Dublin inferior complex, laughing emoji, but will cheer on the same players at the World Cup.
But you were saying I should support Leinster because I live in Dublin and work in Dublin.
Yeah,
but that's so
it's really
stupid.
interesting about the one.
You don't even have a province.
It's like the one with Ireland, and I've had this with some of my friends who maybe mightn't like to see Leinster winning. But they would cheer him on then for Ireland, and vice versa. There's Leinster supporters. I wasn't very popular when I was playing for Munster against Leinster. I might have been a bit of a divil on the field or whatever at times and annoyed people. But
it might have been Quinny.
Then if I played for Ireland maybe and I was at a World Cup in Australia and like loads of people from Dublin were coming up, wishing me well and all that. So it does change, and I agree with you. It's just sport. If you don't, if you're ingrained into that game on Saturday, if neutrals, Leinster and La Rochelle, and are passionately glued to it and going to the match, that's a bit different. But, wanting another team to win over an Irish thing, I think it's focusing in on that is a little bit childish in the sense that, oh God, like some people just support different teams. The reason you're suggesting is, because it's kind of a bit of Dublin bias and Leinster bias and stuff like that. When you're successful like that, that's something that they had when we were playing like this maybe not dislike from in such, but the perception that it was D4 and it was Welts and it was schools. So it is still a little bit there.
Perception of it.
But in fairness, Michael Cheika changed a lot of that and started that process. Mick Dawson did a wonderful job there, and they branched out, didn't they, into the communities. That was really important for Leinster.
There are people who still have that sort of anti-D4 thing, but they're just choosing to see that and nothing else.
No, but 95% of Munster fans want La Rochelle to win the Champions Cup.
That's because
that's probably being conservative.
But what I'm saying is, if they were playing,
it's also because it's Leinster.
That's my point. The Ronan O'Gara thing, I get.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
But look,
why would Munster support Leinster?
Because Leinster would support.
There's probably more.
They wouldn't, though.
There's probably more Leinster people that would have supported Munster in 06 and 08.
But they were the full-on ones who...
No, I don't mean even the full-on ones. The Leinster supporters that time would have gone, oh God, I'd like to see them.
Exactly.
They weren't ingrained in the rivalry or they weren't probably as much as there is now. I remember Sir Drico was asked in 06, where will you watch the final, or did you watch the final? And he said, I didn't. I was gone away and I wouldn't watch it. Like, so you don't expect Dricko at that time to say, well, I want to see Munster win.
No, but there's a difference
We've just
between
beat
that
him in a
and
final.
actively
A player
cheering against their opponent.
Yeah, and that's there. That's there.
The Ronan O'Gara thing, I think you can remove from the conversation, because I totally accept that.
That's just sport.
Absolutely fine.
Why wouldn't they actively support against them?
It's if they're playing some other random team that they've no connection with, but they're just actively. It's the difference between that and actively cheering against Leinster, which I think is a huge part. Even looking at the comments this morning, is a big part.
That's just sport, though.
Another one says, I could never be against an Irish team in a major competition. I think that's sort of it for me.
I don't know. It's people are.
Some people say that though, and I'm not sure they mean it. Do you know what I mean? I cheer on the Irish team and stuff. I don't know.
Now, if Munster were in the final,
true.
I'd be hoping that they'd win it.
This idea.
Yeah, that's, and I believe you. I genuinely believe you. Even as I'm trying to turn you into a Connacht man and claim that you are Connacht, but you're sticking to the Leinster, the blue of Leinster. But I believe you, and there's lots of people like that. When we played, we would go to Kilkenny a lot. Mick Galway lived there. John Hayes and myself used to go down there a lot. And a lot of the Kilkenny fellas, Ian Dowling was playing, they were all Munster fans. But if you went down to Kilkenny now, and that group of fellas are gone older that we used to know, I'm sure they're all Leinster fans, you know what I mean? It's changed.
Exactly, yeah.
So that's what Leinster did really well, in fairness. They realised we need to get outside of this perception. It's still hanging in there, the school system, all that. But they've definitely branched out, and Tyke Furlong and Wexford, Sean O'Brien and Tullow, all that stuff.
From Mayo, Robbie Henshaw, Jack Conan, all the Aussies / New Zealand. Like, it's actually less and less when you if you're choosing to just see a group from D4, then you're just blind to what's blind to the reality.
People saying to me,
headquarters, so they're probably looking at this is where it.
I don't think headquarters is actually officially in
I know.
I've heard the argument said to me, if Leinster win on the 20th of May, that could have a roll-on effect in terms of Ireland in the World Cup. Winning is a habit. That's a ridiculous argument. The result on the 20th of May is not going to dictate who wins the World Cup.
Harm.
I don't think so. If Leinster lose on the 20th of May,
it certainly would be better if they won than if they lost.
Sure, no English team won the Champions Cup or the Heineken Cup.
I know, but I'm just saying it would. If you were to say it was like 0.5% of a difference,
I'm going to sit back here and let you at it, lads.
There was one there that I wanted to read from Stevie Durfel. Says it's just rivalry, nothing more, nothing less. Asking a Munster fan to support Leinster or vice versa is like asking Man United fan to support Man City. So I'm sort of.
I do agree that more Leinster fans would probably support Munster. That's a fact. Than Munster fans supporting.
Yeah.
On the basis of what you saw last weekend, who's going to win it?
Who do I think will win it and who's going to win it are probably two different things. For a reason of La Rochelle can. They're such a powerful side, and if they,
is it an if anymore with them, Quinny? Just because you watch them week in, week out.
They're a very good side. They're a very good side, La Rochelle, and but the reality is Leinster are going to be firm favourites, and it's going to take an extraordinary performance from La Rochelle, which they're capable of.
Reminds me of the conversation we were having this time last year.
Yeah, and to be honest, that Leinster were in control in that second half until they made a couple of mistakes, and La Rochelle got a sniff, got back into it. The Bouguerie try in the corner from the maul when the ball should have been cleared, that gave them an invite back into it. And Leinster had a few opportunities, line breaks in that second half that it could have sealed the deal. So it's just hard to see beyond Leinster the way they're playing, their accuracy around everything they're doing. There's very few teams, probably no team you could take your out half, your centre and winger out of the team and kind of seamlessly just. So we know about their strength and depth and their forward pack, just their accuracy around everything they're doing.
Are we reading too much into the Toulouse game, Quiddy, in that regard, in the sense that there was definitely, I'm not saying they entirely shot themselves on the foot, but they definitely took a toe off by their decision around Dupont Toulouse.
It didn't help them, and I wouldn't get carried away too much. I think they did the job really, really well, and they just looked like changing gears when Toulouse's discipline was poor. Munster nearly beat Toulouse over in Toulouse. If they had an extra little bit of firepower, they deserved to win that game. I think Toulouse, the Sharks, for 50 minutes of was it the round 16 game or the quarter final? I can't remember. In Europe, the Sharks were cutting Toulouse open. We know how good they can be with the X factor and when they come alive and the offloads start happening, but Cup rugby is kind of different, and I think
La Rochelle are different. Like you watch,
they're more of a pragmatic,
they can hold teams out from. I'm not saying at their ease, but certainly with regularity.
Yeah.
From 5 yards out, they can hold them up over the line. They can force a penalty. Very unusual in rugby these days to see that. Nearly like when the team is 5 yards out, you nearly think, well, they're getting over.
And the difference with Europe like this and La Rochelle is they're a cup team as well. As regards, they know. Probably through Rog and changing the mentality of how to control the tempo of a game and you know, not to get overly frustrated with, you know, Toulouse got frustrated last week. They started firing the ball around and kicking loosely, and the discipline was really poor. Leinster are on a different level, to be fair, and it's their overall package. Like, it's everything they do, the offloads, defenders beaten, you know, holding on to possession, the lines are running, all that stuff is superb. And then, you know, I just think Gibson Park, and I think he's so important to Ireland as well. He's so important to that Leinster side. He's decision making, he's passing, he's timing a pass. Wonderful player. But then there's so many good players right across the board that they're all at a very high level, and when they get going, you know, they all react. The anticipation around what everybody's doing. If somebody gets a half gap, they're on it, you know. So who'll win it? I don't know. I think on paper you think, and on form throughout Europe this year, Leinster have been at such a high level. I think it's Leinster that'll win it. I think obviously La Rochelle, and you know, a couple of weeks to prepare for it. How Ronan manages his squad. There'll be a big La Rochelle crowd will come. They'll support him
from
there.
Cork.
Yeah, maybe. But they're incredible travelling support as well. And the scenes they had last year was phenomenal. Leinster owe them one, so it's going to be really intriguing in a few weeks. But I think Leinster at the moment, you think will it'll be too hard to beat them at home.
It's La Rochelle are frightening at their pomp as well. Let's talk a little bit about the URC quarterfinals. Obviously they kick off tonight. Ulster Connacht this evening, Stormer Bulls tomorrow at 2:30, Leinster Sharks tomorrow at 5, and then Glasgow Munster tomorrow at 7:35. So a lot of the big hitters back, especially at Ravenhill tonight. You look at Bundy, Hanson, Herring, Tamanga Allen and McCluskey across both teams back, and more as well. What's your sense of how this one goes?
Connacht have been, their form and their winning run came to an end the last day against Glasgow, which was understandable. It was always going to be a really difficult game. For them getting into Europe and the playoffs was a massive boost for them, given the start of the season. If you remember back, Ulster round 1 away, 36-10 Ulster. Then they went to the Stormers and Bulls, got well beaten in both those games. So there were 3 losses from the first 3 rounds on the back foot. Then they responded. They beat Munster in the sports ground, the 4G pitch. That was the first game in it. And then they were very much up and down right up to Christmas, through the Christmas period. And then they, you know, went on a run where they beat the Sharks, the Lions, which you'd expect. There were 2 home games against the South Africans. One away in Zebra, 57-34, and they started this run, and suddenly you start to think, if their run isn't as bad, bar the Glasgow one, the run in wasn't as bad. You know, they went to the Dragons during the Six Nations, beat them 22-20, which was a bit of a slog. Very impressive against Edinburgh, 41-26, and Cardiff, 38-19. And then, as I said, the last game. So they went on a run of 6 wins in the URC, which put them in this position. Playing the exciting brand, the offloading, the running, the passing, width in their game. So they're in better fettle, obviously, because they were coming off a better run. Ulster didn't have the most difficult run in either. And obviously you've got to compliment them finishing second in the league. They had a period there, if you remember, December, January, which was dreadful. The run they had in the league and in Europe. So it's a hard one to call. I think, you know, obviously it being in Belfast, it's difficult.
Bit of pressure on McFarland, bizarrely,
well, you see, it is. And if Connacht were to kind of get something and win this game, I think Ulster kind of peter out again at this stage. If they beat Connacht, they're going to be at home in a semi-final as well, so they have a path to the final. And with Leinster's distractions in Europe, it might help them actually, give them a sniff at winning it. So it's an intriguing one. I think Bundy Aki and Mac Hansen being back and Dave Heffernan is a big boost for Connacht. And they're a dangerous side. When you look at that back line, Caelan Blade is someone who's a lot to play for as well, given the fact that he's been in Andy Farrell's squads. He's not a million miles away. Very good player. So it's a big game. Someone I'd look at in the Ulster side that I'd love to see go well is Jacob Stockdale, to try and fight his way back into this Irish reckoning. But they need a good run between now and the end of the season. There's a number of the Ulster players, Dwayne Vermeulen could be his last game if they're beating Rory Sutherland. Ulster's maul has been very strong this season. So I would say if Connacht can deal with Ulster's maul, they have a real chance here, because I think they are going to throw the ball around a bit and have a real go here. So it's an intriguing one, but you'd probably have to fancy Ulster. But I think Connacht they have a real chance going there tonight.
We'll skip by the Leinster game and go to tomorrow evening in Scottstown. The game last month as a barometer, the 28-0 at half-time.
We'll skip the Leinster one just because it's...
No, I'm not saying that at all.
We don't have time for it. I know that.
To be fair,
we don't know what team. And to be fair,
the Sharks are without two of their biggest names, two of the biggest names of world rugby. So I don't know, but
with Khaleesi,
but Munster, Sneeman is back. Potentially.
Yeah, we don't know the teams, Leinster Sharks either.
They're
we
back
don't
training,
know Munster,
so if those two were included.
Well, Snyman is going to be back, and I think he'll start. What we saw from him a few weeks ago, when he came back, the first game back down in Cork, I can't think what game that was, 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
His return game.
Off the bench, I think.
That was he looked a little bit slow, pedestrian, nervous, which is understanding. And understandable. There was a Scarlets game. Then they had Glasgow, their next game, which they lost. He came off the bench there again. The Stormers game was the one where I saw him having that little bit of spark back in him. And he's a phenomenal player. Honest to God, he's standing beside him. He's just a monster. So he's a huge boost for them. Tygburn being back in the mix. I don't know whether they'll probably not start him because he hasn't played since the French game. It's been a long time, but having a Tygburn off the bench for 20 minutes or 25 minutes of that second half would be significant. Niall Scannell's back in the mix, Dave Kilcoyne, Roman Salanoa. And I think that could be key for Munster here, is to try and have that impact off the bench. But they're going to a side who they're very, very dangerous. Tupelo in the centre, Hugh Jones, Stafford McDowell, Ali Price. You start rattling them off. The back row of Fagerson, Rory Darge, Richie Gray, Scott Cummings, Fagerson, all these fellas, and they caused Munster a huge amount of problems in that game in Thomond Park a few weeks back. Breakdown was an issue, line-out was an issue, and scrum was an issue. Very difficult they have a bonus point wrapped up before half-time, so you feel there's going to be a spark from Munster, obviously, because it's a knockout game. But they've got to play well as well, bringing emotion and fire to Glasgow tomorrow.
That's not going to be enough.
No, they've got to play well and they've got to perform. The fight is not going to just get you the result, but I think they're in a better position.
Will they get the result?
It's going to be very tight. I think I want to believe, and I believe they'll be close to it. But Glasgow are a very dangerous side, and they've been playing well. For the last number of months, they're in the only thing that may distract them a little bit is they have a Challenge Cup final in 2 weeks, and it's a real win opportunity playing Toulon here in Dublin. I think it'll suit Glasgow better, but they're full of confidence and belief, and that's what Sione Tupeloto in the centre is saying, that they feel really confident. So it's an intriguing one. If Munster scrum and line-out don't function and they get kind of issues, I think they had a night off for that first half and were caught by a really powerful side and full of internationals. So they have a real good chance. I'm not sure who's going to win this one. It's going to be very tight.
Yeah. All right, a couple of comments before we leave this to bring us full circle. Embarrassing for Irish fans to support a French team over an Irish club, says HC.
Why?
Quinny is right, says Edward Freeman. Leinster fans would support other provinces, but Munster fans less likely to. It's easier for them as they've been beaten down by Munster so much it's not even a real rivalry anymore, which is a whole other kettle of fish. Al Raj, says Kieran O'Connor.
I agree with that comment.
Dahi O'Shaughnessy says 95% of Munster fans supporting Leinster. Shane, that's a big stretch. Can't remember you saying that, but
I did say that, yeah. Sorry, it's a big stretch that 95% of Munster fans will be supporting La Rochelle in the
95% of fans will be supporting La Rochelle, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course they will.
Sorry, he was saying that he misinterpreted what you said, which definitely.
All right, yeah.
Aaron Ver says, lived in France and played amateur rugby there. I would never support a French or any other club over an Irish one. As a proud Connacht man, I support Leinster wholeheartedly. Allez le bleu.
Shane, Selick says Shane is shook, someone says. Not shook at all.
He's rattled.
As a proud Connacht man, you're supporting
Leinster. Vive La Rochelle, vive Raj.
Do keep those comments coming into us. Quinny, thanks a million. Enjoy the rugby over the weekend. We'll chat to you next week. Right, where are we off to now? We have the fire pit standing by. It's OTB AM. We're live at Gillette Labs.